Hi, I'm Debbie Georgiadis. Welcome to my show, America Can We Talk? Today, I'll talk truth about the border battle, the Ocasio-Cortez view of the world, and why I defend Trump. All of it comes out to a battle about America's identity. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgiadis, host of America Can We Talk, brings to the American political conversation lawyerly logic, passionate patriotism, and a commitment to preserving the extraordinary and unique greatness of America. As an author, lawyer, and political analyst, she talks truth about the tough issues facing America.
Georgiadis, welcome to my show, America Can We Talk, and to today's First Five. Well, we are on day 24 of the shutdown. The problem in Washington, Congress cannot reach agreement with the president about funding a $5 billion demand to build the border wall. What I want to talk about in today's First Five is really is the issue that the border wall battle is not really about the border wall at all. It is about, at one level, the Democrat Party unwilling to give President Trump a victory, a legislative victory. They can see that this was an issue that he ran on, he promised, his screaming, cheering followers have asked him to do, and they do not want to give him that victory. The Democrats are so not upset about all this that at least a group of whatever it is, 17 of them are down in Puerto Rico at a beach party along with a bunch of lobbyists, not even concerned at all about what's happening in Washington. But what I really want to hit in today's First Five is this. The border battle is not just about whether Trump gets his way or the Democrats get their way. The existence of a secure border is tied irrefutably and inevitably to the idea of a sovereign nation. The border battle is about the idea of whether or not we value this country, America, sufficiently that we will secure the border using whatever means it takes. One of the means is a wall in portions where there's no other logical, reasonable way to secure the border. That's what this battle is about. But because this is my first show in my new studios at Real News PR and Real News Communication Network, I want to take a chance, an opportunity to introduce you to the bigger idea of why I do this show, America Can We Talk? The America Can We Talk, my show, is dedicated to the idea that America is a unique, extraordinary, exceptional gift of liberty to every generation of people who live here. America, the country, was created by people who created it with a firm belief that each individual, simply because you were born, has the right to liberty. That's what the promise of the Declaration of Independence is. That's what the promise of America is. It's a country rooted in a guarantee of liberty to each individual. That is a drastic difference with most countries in all of the world. Even today, freedom is a precious, unique commodity, even in America today and around the world. Many of the issues I talk about on my show, we'll go through the political issues of the day, the battles, what the Democrats want, the Republicans want, the conservatives, the liberals. But the real issue I always want to address is, what does this issue mean to us in terms of preserving this extraordinary gift of liberty that we are blessed to live in? The border battle is just one. If you don't have a secure border, you don't have a sovereign nation. There is no other way around it. If you abandon your border, which it appears the Democrats are willing to do, you don't have a country. But many other issues also relate to the founding liberty of America. The battle about Obamacare, whether to repeal it or to revise it or to move to Medicare for all. Healthcare freedom is a liberty issue. The issue in Obamacare and healthcare is whether or not individuals have the right to have the control of their own healthcare. Or can the government take control of your health care and make laws that limit and force you to do what they want you to do? It is a liberty issue. The same is true, this battle we have in America over identity politics. Identity politics in America, where we divide the country into groups based on race, ethnicity, national origin, women versus men. This is a core it's absolutely opposite. It is unworkable in the idea of America. America was one of the beautiful things about the founding of our country, that it was founded on ideas. America itself is an idea. It's an experiment in liberty. When we dissolve our political discussions into hyphenated American groups battling each other, we are never able to come to solutions. It's an intentionally divisive technique used by the anti-American left to divide Americans and to get us to a situation where we can never get resolution. The rise in support of socialism in this country, astonishing. The election of now two openly socialist members of Congress is a sign of socialism gaining strength in America. In fact, there was polling recently among millennials in America today, 51 to 45 prefer socialism. Democrat Party, 57% of registered Democrats have a positive view of socialism. Fortunately, saner minds prevail, and overall in America, there is still a 56 to 37 preference for freedom over socialism. But I raise this point to say, embracing socialism is a country-changing idea. It's the idea of abandoning individual liberty. The only economic system that works in a country committed to liberty is freedom and free markets. We also have the battle of climate change. Tomorrow on my show, I'm going to have an expert on joining us, Dr. Sterling Burnett from the Heartland Institute, to talk about how the climate change industry is really an industry pushing socialist redistribution of wealth under the guise of climate concern. We also have threats to this great, precious, extraordinary idea that is America from the growth of the federal administrative agencies. We have a massive government in Washington, growing and growing, unaccountable agencies, never ever responsible to the voters because we didn't vote them in and we can't vote them out. So this is my show, America Can We Talk. I could talk about many more issues, but in closing out my first five tonight, the show is dedicated to the idea that every generation of Americans has the precious responsibility, duty, and I hope just joy in taking part in the battle to preserve America, the most extraordinary, unique exercise in human liberty in American history. That is today's first five. Coming up next, the human side of the border wall. And welcome back to America Can We Talk. I'm Debbie Georgatos. I did my first five tonight, just kind of giving a reintroduction of my show. If this is the first time you watch America Can We Talk, I've been doing the show for 4.5 years, but today is my first day in a new studio in Dallas, which is my base, and it is at the Real News PR firm at the Real News Communication Network Podcasting Center. It is a great place to do a show from. I'm thrilled to be kicking off my first show here today. And I talked in the first five about why I do this show. You know, I don't have a background in radio. I'm a lawyer by background. I'm a litigator by background, a stay-at-home mom, a volunteer, a political analyst. I've done lots of things. But I'm involved in politics, really trying to get all the time to the root of the argument that America is a unique experiment in liberty, and there are forces within our country that are very much pushing to destroy that founding idea of liberty, to turn our country back into a country like many other countries are, where the issue is how much freedom does the government give you versus how much freedom do we agree is God-given and is inalienable to us, protected for us. And I meant to mention in the just a sign of how the idea of governance is changing in America, there was a speech given by the New York City Mayor de Blasio, and I didn't get to it in the first five, but I want to quote something he said before I get to the border thing. He was talking, and he does a State of the City address, you know, like the State of the Union, the State of the State. He does State of the City, and last Thursday, in Mayor de Blasio's State of the City speech, he actually said, "Here's the truth, brothers and sisters. There's plenty of money in the world. There's plenty of money in this city. It's just in the wrong hands." That is a voice, that is a message of someone who does not believe in the idea of America, does not believe in the idea that each individual has the right to make his way, to dream his dreams, to work and succeed and thrive, and then have control of their own property, their own money. It's a guy who's thinking that the purpose of government is to take control of as much money as you can, to use it in the way that you, government, thinks should be used, rather than the people who worked and earned it. This is a guy telling you that he has embraced that socialist mindset, which is just impossibly opposite of what America is. But I want to talk about the border wall for a minute, because right now, here we sit, we're in 2019, we have the shutdown happened because of the border wall dispute, over $5 billion. And when you think about what a tiny percent of the federal budget $5 billion is, you know this battle is not between the Democrats and Republicans about money. It's not about whether we can afford $5 billion for the border wall. It is about the Democrat insistence that President Trump not get a legislative victory. It's also about a stalemate of the Democrats who are going to say, we're going to go with the mattresses on this, we're going to go with the mat, we're not going to give in, because they do not want this picture that President Trump is painting for us about a secure border and a restoration of an orderly immigration system where we in America decide who comes to our country, and we decide on what status you come and what is your whether you are entitled to receive asylum or you're not entitled. The Democrats do not want that. They have benefited greatly from this wildly open border. And I want to just tell you some facts about the border in a moment. This battle about the border, I have a clip to play for you in just a moment, but this battle at the border is about whether or not in places where you cannot otherwise secure it, we should build a wall. Well, President Trump went down to the border along with actually both of our Texas senators. This is a border dispute issue in Texas. So our two U.S. senators, Cruz and Cornyn, were there, and they spoke with a gentleman who's the head of the Border Patrol in this area about what happens at the border when there's no wall. This is clip one.
We have 55 miles of fencing in this sector. We started a job in 2006. We need to finish that job. We've got the personnel, we need the technology, we need the resources, we need the infrastructure in order to control this border and manage it. Part of our area is covered with some fencing on our east side. That accounts for about 6% of our traffic. Where we have no fencing, over 90% of our traffic occurs in those areas.
Okay, this should not be shocking, but the people crossing the border are succeeding where there's no wall. I mean, I almost shouldn't have to say this. It is so patently obvious and basic. But the guy's saying, yeah, when there's no wall, that's when people cross the border into America. So I want to hit a couple other points about border security. And they have to do with, right now we've had these migrant caravans coming up from Honduras and Central America coming up through the southern border. President Trump did not incite those caravans to come. Neither did the Democrats, neither did anyone else. The point is, there are people living in low-income areas in Central America, in South America, and around the world who would love to come to America and make it their home. And America is a very generous country already, most generous in the world in bringing people to America and having new people come here and become legal immigrants. But the Gallup organization did a World Gallup poll asking people around the world, what percent of you who would like to leave the country you're in and move somewhere else? 15%, 15% of the world's adults said they would prefer to permanently move to another country rather than their own. That's about 750 million people. 1 in 5 of these potential migrants, 21%, or about 158 million adults worldwide, answered the Gallup poll and said they want to leave their country they're in and they want to come to America. 158 million. We already have in America, whatever it is, 330 million people. So that's like half again as many people want to come to America. And you can't blame them. America is a land of opportunity, security, safety, well-being, promise. Of course people want to come here. But the answer cannot be just because there are people who want to come here that we just simply open our borders. And this is part of what this battle is about. The world is watching whether or not America actually will enforce its borders, will actually say, we have a border here. Everybody has to come through one of our legitimate legal entry points, and then they have to present to us a reason why they think they should be able to come here seeking asylum. Because if we don't do that, if we just abandon these areas where there is no possibility of controlling the border, and we handle this crisis poorly, we surrender the border to the migrant caravan, who, by the way, of course, once they come in, even when they come here and they make an application for asylum, we now have this catch and release policy that says, okay, well, now we know you're here, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, we know you're here, here's your trial date, here's your hearing date, come back for your hearing and we'll decide whether you get asylum. And it's something in the range of 80% or 85%, of course, never come back for the hearing. They disappear into the American population. So if we want to agree as a country that anyone can come here and we will not in any way try to figure out whether they meet our asylum requirements, whether they have some kind of record of wrongdoing that we don't want them coming to America, unless we want to have that happen, we have to secure the border. The numbers are staggering. The other element of this border security issue has to do with the rule of law. And when you think about it, I have not ever entered a country illegally. I think most people watching, you've never done it. People do leave their countries out of desperation, out of poverty, out of fear of the government. But we have in America a set of laws designed to meet the situation when people come here and seek asylum. We have to insist that those laws are followed, or if someone wants to change the asylum laws, then have Congress change the laws. But we do not have as a standard now, we cannot have as a standard that says anyone who's poor can come here and we'll let you in and we'll never enforce our border, which is really what the Democrat Party is permitting to happen. I also want to mention on this, with respect to migrant flows coming into America, we already have in America an increased number of people who are coming to America. They're coming through the southern border, but they're not coming from Mexico. The numbers are greatly increasing of people coming from other countries other than Mexico, and so they are coming through the Mexican border, but they are, in fact, here are the numbers. The U.S. Border Patrol said individuals from countries other than Mexico have increased from 59,000 people in the year 2010 to 99,000 in the year 2012. In a 2-year period, almost doubled. And so, of course, within these migrant groups, there's a potential for terrorists to be part of the groups. Look what's happened to Europe. Europe had an uncontrolled migrant flow into Europe over the past, whatever it is, 20 years. They're now having an extremely difficult time handling the migrant flow, especially they've had such a large influx of people from Islamic countries who are bringing all sorts of challenges to the legal systems in their country in a variety of ways. No vetting occurred. The borders were open. People poured in. And now Europe is trying to backtrack and figure out how to insist upon control of their borders and insist upon retaining their culture. So there's a sovereignty issue, a rule of law issue, a pure numbers issue. There's also the issue of crime. And I am saying all this to get to a point about what the battle is between President Trump and the Democrats over the border wall. Because the idea that it's about money is absurd. But I want to finish one more point about the amount of crime committed by illegal immigrants already in America. And the numbers are pretty staggering and alarming. Okay, first of all, among people who enter America as illegal immigrants, according to the United Nations, people entering America as illegal immigrants, 97% of them come across the 2,000-mile border between U.S. and Mexico. And so that is 97% of illegal immigrants coming in, come across the southern border. Only 20% of those who cross illegally are caught. So we already have a massive influx of people not caught because we don't have a wall and we don't have a secure southern border. We have about 4.5 million illegal aliens in the U.S. driving on a regular basis, virtually all of them without licenses or insurance. We have, of the 188,000 deportations that happened in 2011, 23% had committed criminal traffic offenses. We have state prisons and we have federal prisons filled with illegal immigrants, people who came to America. They're not in jail for entering America illegally. They're in jail for having committed crimes in America. And Charlie Kirk, I have a clip here of Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA answering the question when someone asked him, why, what's the good defense of why we have to have a border wall? Here's Charlie Kirk.
An illegal alien in the state of Arizona is twice as likely to commit a crime versus a natural-born citizen. Fact. 90% of all heroin and fentanyl come across the southern border. Fact. Over 10,000 kids are illegally sex trafficked across the southern border every single year. Fact. We have 56,000 illegal immigrants in our federal prison system. Fact. And countless in our state penitentiary system. $135 billion a year. That's how much is the financial burden on U.S. taxpayers every single year that illegal immigrants drain from our system. Fact.
And, you know, I just thought he did a good summary. That's Charlie Kirk, and he's with, he founded Turning Point USA, and to his right, or your left on the screen, is Candace Owens, who's been a great, she's been on my show a couple of times, great guest, great outspoken person. But anyway, what Charlie Kirk is getting at is, we have this discussion about border security, and it relates to all the other issues surrounding immigration and citizenship and the standards for citizenship and what to do about DACA and what to do about people who are here legally and the dreamers, and that whatever the number really is, estimates range from 11 million to 40 million people in America illegally. Whatever those numbers are, Americans, legal citizens who work here, pay taxes, follow the law, are shouldering the burden of this just endless burgeoning population of illegal immigrants. And, I'll tell you something else about the Democrats that has just really, on this whole issue, you can go back. I had clips that thought it was just too much time to take today, but there are clips that show Chuck Schumer just complaining that we need to stop calling these people undocumented immigrants. They are illegal immigrants. You have Schumer insisting we have to have border security. You have statements by Schumer, now being the Democrat minority leader in the Senate, who's now blaming this border problem on President Trump, whereas only in less than 10 years ago, Schumer was saying the same thing Trump is saying now. You had Schumer saying it, you had Nancy Pelosi saying it, you had Hillary Clinton saying it, you had Bill Clinton saying it. You had Democrats over the decades agreeing, of course, we have to have a secure southern border. The Democrats know it. The American people know it. President Trump knows it. The entire population of America, legal population, actually knows we have to have a secure border, or else we don't have a country, or else we're just a blob of soil somewhere on the planet Earth with people wandering aimlessly because there are no lines. But lines create countries. And lines create, in America, lines create the United States of America and the particular idea of a country that America is. When we have people coming to America wanting to become citizens or coming here on green cards, we have not only the legal right, but actually the obligation to the existing population of Americans who are here legally. We have an obligation to make sure that people coming here understand what the idea of America is, understand that this is a country based on the rule of law, that if you entered our country illegally, you're not entitled to stay here just because you want to. We have other steps that the idea of the border wall is the idea of retaining the idea of America. It's the idea of maintaining a country where we have our laws, our rules, our systems, our standards for citizenship. This is what the idea of America is. And if people don't like that idea, and they want to change the law in America, that's another way to go about it. But what has to happen in America, in addition to getting the southern border secure, and President Trump has been one just absolutely willing to push on making many changes. He is trying to push to end the catch and release policy, that people sneak over the border, they're here, they seek asylum, we get their data, and we say, okay, come back for your hearing. Of course, they never come back again. But we had this idea of catch and release, and Trump is saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to process them while they're there. The second and even deeper issue that Trump is willing to address and must be addressed to get the immigration problem under control is to address the issue of birthright citizenship. I'm not going to go off on that today. I've done it on other shows. But the idea that simply if you if you break into America, if you come across our border illegally and you're not a citizen and you manage to arrive in the American side of the river or the American side of the border and give birth to a child, the question of whether that child is entitled under the U.S. Constitution to birth to citizenship because he or she was born in America is not a settled question of law. The issue is a constitutional issue. We need to have the court address it someday. But all these issues, they kind of get around to what I wanted to kind of close this segment of the show on with respect to the border security issue. President Trump is the first president in decades willing to take on the hard questions that most of Washington, the Republican side and the Democrat side, will let slide. President Trump is willing to take on the hard issues, saying, no, we actually have a huge problem at the border. We have a porous border. We have people pouring across the American border all day long. We don't enforce our law. And then we have them in America. We have, obviously, crime occurring at the hands of illegal immigrants. I could have read you many more statistics and didn't want to get off on stats too much, but there's a very serious correlation, a higher instance of criminal conduct by people who are illegal aliens in America than people who are citizens in America. There's also a much higher instance of reliance on government dependency programs by illegal immigrants as compared with people who are legally in America. The point is, taking control of the border is insisting on the identity of America, insisting on the meaning of America, that America was founded to be a country rooted in the rule of law, a country where we have a unique idea about what liberty is. We're part of a grand experiment in all of human history to be in a country based on liberty, that everyone is responsible to follow the rule of law, everyone's responsible to participate in this system, and we're entitled as a country, as every other country is, to set our standards for what constitutes citizenship, what categories of people have permission to be in this country, and taking back our country from the lawlessness at the border is kind of like in your personal home. If you came home from vacation or woke up in the morning and discovered that your home was filled with people who'd broken in, you would remove them, or you'd have the police remove them. You wouldn't just say, well, I guess it isn't our home anymore. Well, America, the country, is our home. We have just as much right to insist on who is an American, who has a legal right to be here, what statuses are available as citizenship or some other status for people to come here. We have that right, and we have to insist on that right, or else we're just abandoning this great experiment in liberty in America. Enough on that. I've done a lot on border. I'll do more on the border. But I want to turn now and talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I want to just, if you don't know who that is, you really should. We have a picture of her, I think. I don't know if we have it or not. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a young woman who was elected to the U.S. Congress from a Democrat district in the state of New York. She ran, the one thing I'll give her credit for, she ran a brilliant primary challenge. She challenged a long-term incumbent Democrat who'd been in Congress 20 years representing this Democrat district, and she challenged him in a primary, and she did work hard. She knocked on doors and told people, hey, I'm Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or people call her AOC. In fact, I think her Twitter handle is AOC. And she's basically arguing, she said to them, you need new representation, I'm the new you, all that. Her district is heavily Hispanic. She is Hispanic. And so she beat this long-term incumbent Democrat, probably the biggest surprise of the primary election season in 2018. She's now in Congress. So she's a member of Congress. She's an openly Democrat socialist. And part of what, I talk about the many things we have to change in this country and to restore America, to restore what America means and is to people. It is to restore our education system, because people leave elementary school, high school, college, grad school. They leave school in America without ever having learned, with never having been taught why America is unique and extraordinary and great. People never learn it. They leave college. There she is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She has a degree, a bachelor's degree, I think from BU, from Boston University, majoring in economics. And she's in Washington as a new member of Congress. And she is, I tell you the good and bad of it, She is a strident socialist, openly, happily socialist, says so. She actually staged a sit-in in the Democrat, Nancy Pelosi's office, the Democrat, now she's again, sadly, the majority leader, but staged a protest in her office demanding immediate action on climate change, immediate, passage of this Green New Deal that she wants, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow. But she's a really good example. And this segment, I'm going to do a lot of segments over the year related to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's not really aimed just at her. It's aimed at the millennial mindset, and not all millennials, but the mindset that actually thinks that socialism works, that actually thinks that they have this snowflake attitude. They can't be insulted. They can't be criticized. They can criticize all day long, but it's that snowflake attitude that emerged out of college for her and her snowflake generation. But she's made the news in a variety of ways. She gets more media attention than Nancy Pelosi or any other Democrat in Washington. I think President Trump should make her the face of the Democrat Party because she is young, she is militant, she's on a mission, she is clueless. It would be too nice a word to describe her failure to grasp things. She is wedded and rooted in identity politics, one of the most harmful forces in the American political conversation. One of the most harmful forces in America is this identity politics idea that people, instead of saying, I'm an American, I'm a conservative, I'm a whatever it is, I'm a, and then fill in the blank American, some ethnicity, race, national origin, or gender, versus just, I'm an American who believes something. But anyway, she's rooted in this identity politics. So she got in a few skirmishes this week, which make a lot of points. She just epitomizes the problems we have in America, and how and what we have to, we have to fix. We have to fix it because we're Americans, and we're going to get our country back on track. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took issue with a posting. There was an announcement by, I think it was CBS. It was one of the CBS major networks. They did a Twitter announcement lining up. They had pictures of the people they have chosen to head up their team for the 2020 presidential election cycle. And yes, sadly, we're already into that phase where we're looking at the 2020 presidential election. So CBS put out a tweet listing showing the faces of I think it is 12 people. They have 8 2020 campaign reporters and 4 2020 associate producers. So they had their little picture of the people and their name. So this is CBS is announcing, hey, look at these people. This is who's going to head up our campaign team for 2020. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responded on Twitter, taking a shot at them. And so, this Twitter announcement by them was just basically saying, hey, look at our team. Here we go, 2020 presidential election. Ocasio-Cortez took a shot saying, this is what she tweeted in response. This White House administration has made having a functional understanding of race in America one of the most important core competencies for a political journalist to have. Yet CBS News hasn't assigned a single black journalist to cover the 2020 election. She closed out with unacceptable in 2019, try again. Okay, this is a great example. What is so evil, sinister, and just plain stupid about identity politics? What if CBS instead had put out a picture, put out the pictures on their tweet announcing who's going to be their 2020 team, and had only black journalists, black journalists listed as their core team. But all those black journalists were conservative. So they covered, which would never happen because it's CBS, but we're doing a hypothetical here. If you had 12 black journalists committed to be part of the CBS team dealing with the 2020 presidential election, you would have the left going nuts because they'd be saying, wait a minute, those are all conservatives. What about, why don't you have a balance? Why don't you have some liberals? But the point is, she's so fixated on race, so fixated on identity politics, she's not even thinking about the question of, where are these people politically? Shouldn't that matter more? Shouldn't you want, among of all things in journalism, you should want people who would, if you must have journalism, which seems just committed to having bias woven into every story and every topic, wouldn't you at least want to have a range of people's political views, have leftists and centrists and people on the right, whatever the combination is? The point is, the fact that these people happen to all have, and there were, by the way, among this group that the CBS had chosen, there were, several women. I'm going to tell you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women, several Asian, several Hispanic. It was not a all blue-eyed blonde, men. That was not what it was at all. It had women and men. It had other minorities. But she's so fixated on race and so fixated on her moral preening and virtue signaling. Look at me, I'm standing up because I don't like the idea they don't have a black journalist. So one guy, probably others too, but one guy at the Daily Caller, one of the writers for Daily Caller, kind of took her up on that. And he's been responding and saying, well, wait a minute, what are we into, ratios? We're into, what's it called? Not ratios. We're into, firm ratios. We're insisting, we're insisting on ratios. She said, no, racial quotas. What are you talking about, Alexandria? You want racial quotas? She responds to that. The point is, she went back and forth on Twitter, arguing with this characterization. First of all, arguing with CBS for who they chose to be their reporters. Second of all, arguing with this reporter at Daily Caller who dared to call her out and say, really, Alexandria, come on. And then she continued the argument with just snarky. This is a 29-year-old who's been out there advocating for socialist solutions to everything under the sun, and she's out there arguing with somebody at Daily Caller. And the final edge on this story is that she's now complaining, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, member of Congress, Democrat, socialist member of Congress, is complaining because the Daily Caller, she says, her question was, when does nonstop criticism of me by the Daily Caller rise to the level of harassment? Well, let me tell you the answer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Nobody at CBS asked her opinion about who they put on their team to go cover the 2020 presidential elections. She's sticking her nose in their business, making an unfounded accusation that somehow racism is happening. Because look at this, they don't have any. I've decided what is a correct racial composition, and I get to say that they're wrong for not having a black journalist as part of that. She's sticking her nose in. She's harassing CBS. She's harassing Daily Caller for talking about this issue and pointing out what her attitude is. And then her complaint is, how dare you harass me? As one little last tidbit in Alexandria before I hit the last topic of the day, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put out a tweet and commented on the fact that before she was a member of Congress, she used to bartend and wait tables at a particular restaurant. And she put out a statement saying she was so saddened to learn that the restaurant where she had, met customers and had a great work experience and been a bartender and been a waitress, she lamented that the restaurant had closed down, had gone out of business. The manager of the restaurant put out that the reason, in large part, that they had to close down is because they cannot afford the cost of doing business because of policies this ding-dong socialist supports. She is a raise minimum wage, jack up minimum wage. This restaurant is saying we can't afford to be in business because of these idiotic policies of the kind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pushes. And this is, we'll talk on the show many, many times about socialism, but this pipe dream mentality of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinking somehow the government can wave a magic wand and fix everything simply because she wants them to. Because government can somehow make it so everybody has an income level that they like and they're comfortable with. She thinks somehow she can do that because she has not one clue about how the world works, about how free markets work, about why America is the most extraordinary, exceptional, abundant, prosperous country on the planet because of freedom, because of free markets, because we didn't so far get duped into socialism. You'll be hearing more about her. I don't mean to pick on just her. It's on everyone in her generation and every generation, foolishly thinking somehow you can wave a magic wand and make things fair that aren't fair. Last topic of the day. You may have seen the news that Jeff Bezos is divorcing his wife. This is the guy, I'm sure you know, Bezos. He founded Amazon. And actually, I read an interesting story about it, like literally driving across the country with an idea about books, but founded Amazon in 1994. He is worth $128 billion, and he then bought the Washington Post in 2013. And the Washington Post kind of dedicates every day, all news day, to criticizing, tearing down, mocking, and deriding President Trump, which takes me to Trump's tweet. Trump put a tweet out about Bezos getting divorced because after the divorce was announced, the National Enquirer, not a paper I read, but the National Enquirer put a story out how they had been tracking Bezos for months because he's been having an extramarital affair. So Trump put out some tweet, called him Bozo instead of Bezos, and criticized him essentially for the divorce, having an affair, and then ending up in the front page of the National Enquirer. And people criticize that, and they say, this is a good example of Trump being unpresidential. You know, why did he have to tweet that? Why couldn't he just be quiet? Why did he have to say that? You know, he just looks so petty. I'm going to tell you something. The answer to why he said that is the answer to why many people defend Trump. And that is because he fights. Because he does not surrender to the relentless attacks on America from the American left. He's had Bezos' newspaper, the Washington Post, attack him since the day he rode down that escalator and announced he's running for president. Malign, attack, leak, anything they can do to hurt him. Bezos owns that paper, which has protected Amazon too, by the way. And so President Trump, this is just a tweet saying, yeah, you know what? I don't like how you treat me. I'm going to say something about it. This is why people defend Trump. And I'll tell you, there was a great quote about Abraham Lincoln when he was asked why he didn't fire Ulysses S. Grant, because apparently Ulysses S. Grant, great warrior, was also kind of foul-mouthed, drank too much, pretty surly, unpleasant guy. And President Lincoln's answer to why he didn't fire Grant was because he fights. And that's why people, including myself, defend President Trump, because we've had decades and decades of just watching America move to the left, fail. We have not had enough strong Republican leaders in Washington insisting on limited government, free markets, insisting on those core, precious building blocks of America. We've watched our country, the government grow. We watched the government get bigger and bigger and bigger and more powerful, more intrusive. We watched the surrender of on too many issues, too many times, of the conservatives in Washington to the relentlessness of the American left. And this is why people support President Trump. They don't love every tweet or every word or every issue about his personal life, but he fights for the goodness and greatness of America, and this is why people defend him. I'm Debbie Georges. This is my show, America Can We Talk. For tomorrow's show, we have the Green New Deal and an expert, Dr. Sterling Burnett, coming to explain Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal. Thank you for listening to America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. Talk to you next time.
America, Can We Talk? Truth about America.